In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how I do weathering with a few simple techniques on different models for different reasons. So without further ado, let's dive into it and see how I take my models from battle ready to supremely dirty. So for the first part of this tutorial, what I want to cover is how I approach doing chipping on my models, and it's extremely basic. So right here we have my lightning that I'm painting up currently, and I'm going to be using Rhinox hide to start out with. So what we want to do is shake this up a little bit. All right, get it open, sit down. Now the other thing we're going to want, not just our paint, I usually use a piece of wood like this, like a dry pallet, and a piece of foam. Now what I have here is just a piece of a battle foam case, and I've ripped the end off just like this. Here's a clean piece. I'm just gonna rip the end off. Usually I round off the corners a little bit, okay? That gives me more control about where things end up. So see that? So what I wanna do is take this, I'm actually gonna use the other one first. Take this, I'm gonna dip it into my Rhinox hide, and then I'm gonna sponge it onto this wooden pallet. And now see where it starts to thin out some, right? Okay, that's about the consistency we want. Then we're going to start applying it to our aircraft. So what we want to do is pick a spot here on the aircraft, like right here on the tip of the wing, that we think will have been hit by debris or shots or something, and then we just want to start very lightly. Okay, it's hard to take it away, it's easy to add more, and just start sponging it on a little bit. Now on this dark green, this isn't going to look like much yet, but once we add the metal, then it's really going to start to pop. Okay, so we're just going to go around, and here's the other thing to keep in mind. When I'm doing chipping, I'm going to hide the flaws in my paint job. So see right here, get this real thick highlight. I don't want that. So I'm actually going to cover it up with a little bit of damage to the paint via some chipping. Also broke this decal here, so I'm also going to cover that up a little bit. So that's all we do. You just go around like that, make it a little bit random, and add that across your model. Now that we're done with the Rhinox hide, we're going to switch over to lead belcher. You could also use some brighter metallics or maybe different metallics. Here I'm going to be using lead belcher for the effect that I want to achieve. Just going to dip my sponge in a little bit. There we go. So get a little bit out of my sponge, dry it out a little bit on my dry palette here. So then what we want to do is try to hit the same spots we hit with the Rhinox hide to make like this is the metal coming through the chipped areas. See that there? So we just go around adding little bits of metallic chipping. Now, typically, you do want this to be lighter than the Rhinox hide you put down, or whatever other kind of dark brown base maybe you've used, because you could always switch out colors or use a different paint brand, right? When you do that, you just want to make sure your metallics are typically a little lighter, unless you want to have a, for a narrative sake, a really worn out area, and you want to highlight something a little differently that way. So you can do that. So that's it. You just go around your model like this and add in that metallic chipping. The next thing I want to talk about is the dry application of pigments. And this is something I really love to do. You can of course put pigments on with a fixer. I'll actually show that here in a little bit. But first I want to show you a technique I do, which is just applying them dry. So I have here a now out of production, unfortunately, Secret Weapons Exhaust Black Pigment. Now I'm using this just because I believe this black pigment here is much stronger than some of the other brands I currently have. The other brand I recommend that is still in production, Huge Miniatures, is the company that still exists that I do recommend. With their black in particular, you may just have to do several applications to get the kind of opacity that I'm looking for. But overall, I love Huge Miniatures powders as well, and they're who I go to now. But I still have some Secret Weapon Miniatures Exhaust Black, so I'm going to use that today. So what I'm going to do, I want to create some streaks on the wings of my aircraft. And I want them to look like the soot that gets attached to aircraft wings as it flies. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open this up. I have a white sheet of paper here as my kind of clean surface to work off of, okay? And this is so that I can easily clean up from the pigments, because otherwise they get everywhere. So you want to make sure you have a surface to work off of. I'm just going to take this dry brush, put it in the pigments, put a little bit here on the paper. Then I'm going to come over to the model and very slowly I'm going to start streaking back from wherever I want to create those lines. Now you can create a similar effect by applying this with fixer, or even with oil paints. Another great option. But this is just one of the ways that I like to do it. So let's zoom in a little bit so we can get a better view of how this is going on. Right? So you can see there, I'm just kind of, and it slowly kind of applies itself. Now the other thing about applying this on here dry like this, that means when I do put my varnish on or my fixer, it's going to actually like tone this down even more. So if you decide to use the technique I'm doing here and apply it dry, you may want to make it a little darker than you actually want. And so when you come back and apply your varnish or your fixer, and it dulls down the opacity, makes it a little bit more translucent, you still have the color that you were looking for. This also looks really great over top of all the scratches I just applied to the aircraft as well. So you can just kind of go around, keep rubbing this on the plane, right, or whatever model you're working on. You can apply your pigments this way. I can also take certain spots on here and like add it more subtly in other areas. Sometimes less is more though. So I don't want to overdo it too much. And I do want to keep it nice and simple. The other place I like to apply this pigment in particular is in the exhaust areas on models. Here I got an air intake on the front. My exhaust is on the back, but I haven't finished doing the color effect I want yet. So I don't want to apply my pigments quite yet until I get all of my glosses on there, all of my shades to achieve the color I want. For now, I'm just going to apply this to the wings, and I'll come back and add the other pigment I want later. The next weathering technique I want to talk about is actually something that comes from a very special hobby supply. And we're going to start out talking about Dirty Down Rust. I absolutely love this product. So what this can do is put rust effects, obviously, on your model. And if you know how to use it, it can do it in a number of different ways. First, most importantly, with a product like this, you have to mix it extremely well. This has a high rate of separation for what it's made of, so you have to shake it super well. Inside is usually a mixing ball, so you should shake it until you hear that mixing ball, and then you're actually mixing it, but then you really just got to shake it up for another minute or two. So shake this up super well, and I'm going to show you how we apply it. Okay, so what I like to do is open up my bottle of Dirty Down. If I've shaken it up really well, there's actually some inside the cap. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to use the cap. So I got an old worn out brush. You do not want to use a good brush on this stuff. It will probably ruin your brushes because of how hard it is to clean out. And what you want to do is take your brush, dip it in there a little bit, right out of your cap. And you can apply this one of two ways, and we'll show you both ways. First, you can just apply it straight on to the model. Now, without watering this down, this is going to create a very dark and vibrant rust effect. Okay, so I'm going to apply some there, and we'll watch as that kind of dries. You'll see what I'm talking about. I'm going to apply it a little thicker in a few spots. Just add to that. But then, if you want to get a brighter effect, what you can do is just mix in a little bit of water. So I've watered this down a little bit, got my water pot right here. And then I'm going to just apply it. So let me find a spot on here I think is appropriate. Oh, right here. Okay, so light damage. So I'm just going to apply some of this as watered down. I'm going to rub it across there. Let's do a little bit up here as well, right? A couple of these little chip spots there. I'm going to apply it like that. I'm going to put a little rust down here. A little rust here. Put a little bit of water down rust here as well. And I've really watered this last bit down, so that's barely going to come through there. So we are going to apply it like that. Then I'm going to make a few darker spots. I'm just going to apply it around like that. And if I want to brighten it up and water it down, I'll just add more water to my brush again. And start kind of getting that in there. There we go. And then I can even add, I want this one spot right here to be a little darker. So I'm going to take it straight out of the lid and apply it on there. I think that's going to look really cool. So it's really that easy. You just apply it, and already we can start to see this cure. Look at that. Look at those colors popping out on there, right? Wow, look at those rust effects. It's like magic in a bottle. It really is. So I'm just going to apply this a little more heavily in a few spots. I thinned it down a little too much in a couple spots. And that's the great part about this. You can thin it down and then come back and apply it just a little more, heavier. Right there. Look at that effect. Look at how we have all those kind of mid and light tones. And that's what's great about a product like this, and to get the effect that you really want on your models as you're painting them. So definitely check out Dirty Down Rust. And in a second, I want to show you Dirty Down Patina as well, because I've also used that on several of my models. So we can already see this curing. You can see the darks, you can see the brights on it. That's where I think this is a really great product and something to definitely kind of try out there. Mixing it is crucial to make sure you get the variety here in these tones, okay? So if you don't mix it super well, you won't quite get the brights and darks the way I am when you apply it, or you won't even get the grittiness in the same way. So make sure you pay attention to that and apply it on there well. So next we're going to try out the Verdigris, which is the patina effect that's also from Dirty Down. What I have learned with this one is it dries much faster. So we got to move quickly with this one. But same thing as before, I like to use the cap. I'm going to dip into it a little bit. What I want to do here, I got this like little piece of reliquary, right, that I'm working with. I'm just going to apply this lightly in and around the seams. We shall go around here. Don't spill your bottle. This stuff is very expensive, very useful, also very expensive. Do not spill your bottle. I want it to look like this definitely got a little bit of weather on it. So I'm also going to go around. I'm going to pat my brush on it. See, like this. And just add a few spots of this patina here and there. Now this is also, you can also water this down slightly. So I'm going to show you the effects. I watered this down just a little bit ago. And see that? The real light blue kind of coming through. You could almost even wash models with this patina if you wanted to. Alright, so speaking of which, just gonna run some through here. Then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna brush this on really quickly. I'm gonna wipe away, just leaving it there at the top. Okay, I'm just gonna keep going around doing this till I got it all done. So this is mostly dry already, and you can see generally the effect it's having. Some of it hasn't dried up yet because of the way I watered it down, but you can see there that nice patina effect it put on there. Like I said, you wear some gloves, apply it, wipe it away, and it really comes out looking very nice. So I highly recommend patina products like this too. So the last thing I want to talk about is using pigments with a fixer. So in other words, applying pigments wet. Here I have some barricades, and I've already done some dry brushing, chipping, rust. So I got all the other weathering already on here, but I want it to have a little bit more. So let's add some dirt. So I'm going to use earth from Huge Miniatures. I got this amazing weathering powder here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a dry brush and we'll kind of dip it in. And I'm going to put some here inside of this little mixing tray that I have. Then I'm going to take my fixer, shake it up a little bit, and I'm going to put some drops down in here. All right, well, I think I may need to add just a wee bit more of weathering powder. I'm going to mix those up pretty well. Here we go. Now, I want this to be a fairly watery consistency, so I want it to flow a little across the model, but also have the weight of dirt. Okay, so we're going to grab one of our panels here. And then what we're going to do is I'm just going to go around. You can already see here it's very runny, and that's okay. That's what I wanted to achieve anyhow. I'm just going to apply this liberally, especially across the bottom of this barricade here. There we go. This will make it look like it's really been in quite a dirty war zone here. Got rust, I got dirt on it. This is really important for the back side of this. I don't have the bullet holes or anything, so I didn't have the rust. So here, I may just want to apply some of this, like right over here, over top of the gears, a little bit more across the bottom like that. You can also apply this at kind of different thicknesses, so that when it dries, you kind of get some variation to it. Now see right there, I got a little too much pulled up. I'm going to go ahead while I got the fixer active, kind of stretch that around, push it around a little. Add some to the top here. We want to look like dirt is laying on top of that. We'll do our other one as well. Especially if you get this water down just right, and you also have a nice like kind of glossy coat on here. Castellan green's kind of glossy, so that's what I'm relying on right now. Then you can actually get this to like flow around. So see that right there? I'm applying it, and it's just going to kind of it's kind of running down naturally. That's good. If you want it to look like it's been really sitting out in the weather and the mud's kind of running around on it a little bit, right? It's getting on there and getting wet and then flowing down. This is a great way to accomplish that. Last thing we do is kind of just streak it down a little bit. So go like this while it's still wet and just kind of streak it a little. There we go. Let's leave both of those to dry for a little bit and see what happens. So this is the results of our dirt weathering pigment here on the barricade mixed in with the rust and the chipping. And you can see this thing really looks weathered. I mean, this is kind of the ultimate you do everything to a piece of model or terrain. Now, great thing about pigments is if you're unhappy with the results, right? Like I'm not too thrilled with this. Get a little drop of that pigment fixer, and guess what? You can reactivate the pigment. Yeah, that easy. So you can just reactivate it, just kind of rework it a little bit. You can even remove it this way, right? So you could sit here and take the brush to it and kind of take some of that out of there, and that's more than fine. That's what makes one of like pigments one of the best ways to weather models, in addition to like oil paints and so forth, is because these you can rework until you varnish them. So you can keep reworking pigments, adding to them, mixing them and everything until you varnish, and then you're done. So I think it's a great way to kind of go about it. I'm very happy with it. So that's it for my basics of weathering models. So these are all the different kind of simple techniques I employ. They're very quick and they add a lot to your models. I'm very happy with them in general. The only thing I didn't really go over in this tutorial is oils, because I do feel like they take a little bit more care and a little bit more thought, but they're not that complicated either. They really aren't. But these are just some specialty paints, pigments, sponging and stippling that you can do to kind of create various weathering effects on your models, whether it's chipping or soot streaks or rust or dirt effects or a mixture of everything all together, right? And so we can accomplish that in a number of mediums and really make our models look fantastic, and some good products as well. So definitely go check out Huge Miniatures and their pigments. Go check out Dirty Down, Rust, and other kind of specialty effects. God, they make some of the best stuff on the market. But you can also do some of these effects, right? The stippling, I just use regular acrylic paints, right, in a sponge, and I just applied it to my model sparingly. And it's a, easy way you can also do weathering on your models. So check all these out, try them out. Terrain is a great way to practice before you start doing it on the precious models in your armies, which is one of the reasons why I love doing terrain myself. But that's it for today. So I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please leave comments down below if you have more you want to add to the conversation, maybe about the products or the techniques. The more we talk, the more we share information, the more we learn, and the better we are at the hobby, and the more we enjoy it, the better we are. So please get down in the comments below and let's engage and let's talk about it. If you also enjoyed this tutorial, I have lots more, mostly on painting Astra Militarum. That's kind of my specialty, and it's kind of what I do. So please check that out. I'd be happy to have you subscribe and watch some of my other videos and participate here on the channel. So I really appreciate you all. All right, so that's it for today. As always, have fun wargaming, and remember, Cadius stands.